Welcome to the SAG-AFTRA Foundation's Conversations at Home. My name is Angelique Jackson, film and media reporter with Variety. Now, it is critical that our audience know that the SAG-AFTRA Foundation has a COVID-19 relief fund to support SAG-AFTRA performers who are in urgent need as this pandemic continues. Since March of 2020, the foundation has given nearly $6 million in aid to over 6,300 performers and families facing extreme hardship. If you are a SAG-AFTRA member and you need help, please ask. And if you are able to help support our community in this crucial effort, please give. Information can be found in the description of this video. And now it is my pleasure to introduce the cast of Judas and the Black Messiah, Lakeith Stanfield, Dominique Fishback, and Daniel Kaluuya. Y'all first read this script. What was your first reaction? When you... I guess maybe more of the question is not what was your reaction, but what was the moment when you knew you had to be a part of this project? Lakeith, I'm going to start that one with you. What was either the scene you read or the thing that made you feel like, I want to do this?
When I knew it was a story about Fred Hampton, I loved his speeches. You know, I love the civil rights movement and everything that's associated with everything with that. You know, I'm one of the people that was like, the Black Panthers need to be happening right now. How do we make this shit happen right now? Ever since I was young. So a story like this falling into my awareness was just beautifully divine. And it was something that I always wanted. If I'm going to work on something, I'd like it to be meaningful. And you don't always come across that. So I was excited off jump, you know, read the script and I was just in tears. For quite a while, and I still cry. I mean, I look at the trailer now, and I get emotional about it because we were able to somehow channel the beauty of a person that was just so meaningful to me and moving everything forward for us as humans, as humanity, and for us as Black people. So, I mean, I couldn't have appreciated more that I could be in the place and space to be a part of something like this, you know. Fred, those people, they were trailblazers and real courageous human beings that stood up for us, you know. So I'm just grateful to be able to tell their story, help tell their story, you know, through our vision.
I feel like that's what's most important about this story is that it is telling the story. It is reorganizing the narrative that people have been fed about who and what the Black Panther Party was and is, who and what Fred Hampton was and still is in his meaning to us all. It feels very much to me like Spike Lee's Malcolm X, where we're getting to see the man behind all of this. And in this case, the men also with getting to learn more about who William O'Neill is. But Daniel, for you, what moment in joining this project or when you were approached about it made you want to sign on?
I think when I first heard about the project through Ryan, and when he spoke to me about it and he spoke about his intentions for it, I was like, wow, that's really profound. What he wanted for it. Him and Zinzi spoke to me about it. They said Lakeith was a part of it. They talked about Shaka. And it was just it was like, oh, this feels like an aligned moment, especially putting the Black Panther Party and rewriting the narrative of them, you know, out in the mainstream world. And then I read the treatment and I was like, wow, this is an amazing treatment. And then I read the script and then I had to read the script twice. And after I first read the script, it kind of knocked me out. I've never felt like that from a script where I felt really like intellectually and spiritually knocked out, you know, and I just felt heavy. My heart felt heavy with the weight that these people were internally carrying, and yeah, it just struck me. And then I had to kind of read it again to read it as a film. You know, I wasn't really taking it in first time as a film. I was taking it in like, wow, these people and these experiences and their hopes and their dreams and their wants and their purposes and their goals all managed to kind of summarized within a film narrative. But I was kind of taking in who they were as spirits, and yeah, so it kind of struck me. But there wasn't even like there was a moment like, yeah, it was just like, I just felt like this was meant to. There was something about when it first came out of Ryan's mouth. I was like, this is meant to be, and I don't know where that came from. It's just a feeling that I felt.
It just happens like that sometimes.
Yeah.
Dom, for you?
Honestly, I heard that Daniel Lakeith was doing this movie, and I was like, well, obviously I would want to work with Daniel Lakeith. But I had already cared so much about the Black Panther Party. I was writing my own little romance with the Black Panther Party, or the idea with them, like a Romeo and Juliet version of it. And so when they told me that Shaka wanted me to play Deborah Johnson, I was kind of shocked, because it really showed me the power of the universe and how, you know, we're aligning all the time. You know, we don't even know half of the time. We're researching these things. We're compelled by certain stories, and we don't know that as we're going along our trajectory, somebody else is coming along too, just so that you can meet at the same point. And so I was very excited about it. And one of the first questions I asked him was like, well, is the family involved? Because I also was like, I don't want to step on anybody's toes. I don't want to do anything that hurts the legacy of the Black Panther Party or Chairman Fred. And, you know, he was like, well, we're talking with them. We're kind of going back and forth. So just, you know, read the script and let me know your thoughts. And I read the script, and I was so moved. And I just wrote a whole long email. See, I already Shaka like 3-page papers on this thing. I'm not even like asking him, but I wrote him a whole long email about all the things that I loved. And I said, you know, I have 2 thoughts, but I don't want to overstep. And he was like, well, you'll be playing her. You can't overstep. And I was like, oh, okay. And he said, so give me your notes. And he called them notes. And I wasn't going to call them notes, but he called them notes. And then, so I told him my 2 thoughts. And I just realized that he was a collaborator. Like, I would be fortunate to work with him because he cares about his artists. It's never just, this is what I say, this is how it goes. He'll have a conversation. If he doesn't agree with something, he'll say, you know, I don't know about that, but here's why. And that level of respect that he showed even before I got on set was enough for me to trust in Ryan and Charles King and everybody.
Well, I want to go back to that note really quick that you mentioned about, is the family involved? What was it like having Chairman Fred Jr. be such a big part of this process and being able to be available to you guys for questions and for getting this?
I'm shaking my boots.
He talks fast as hell. Nah. I love that dude, man. I love his passion, and this is his fucking story, you know. And so it felt good to know that somebody who is closely involved with the story, for me, was there the whole time and sort of guiding us through. He wasn't gonna let nothing be faking this shit. Like, it was all gonna be real. It was all gonna be, you know, what he knows and his family knows, and they discuss all the time. He's a revolutionary for real. He's still on the streets out here on the front lines, you know, running while niggas is walking. So it felt good for me to have him there. It just felt like nothing would go wrong, you know what I mean? And it's an interesting dynamic that I hadn't experienced before. I hadn't done a biopic where you had, you know, people that were the family or people that were directly involved in the incidents or the story be directly involved. But I'm glad that he was there because he gave a spirit on and off camera for us and so much knowledge. He got so much up there. It's just like you sit in front of him at a table and everybody shut the fuck up, and he just go and we learn and we're inspired by it. So I think it was a beautiful thing, and I think it helped us keep everything right. And that's what I'm so proud of. One of the things I'm so proud of about the movie is it's so accurate, like, and everything is, you know, as much as we could close to the reality, and we try to derive our interpretation of the story from facts. So it's beautiful.
Yeah. How did y'all build that accuracy while also making things your own? You know, Daniel, for you, especially in having Fred and being able to see, you know, photos and hear audio of him, what of those things did you use and what did you kind of put away in creating your version?
I kind of wanted to read what he read and listen to what he listened to every day. So I'd wake up in the morning and I'd listen to a Malcolm X speech while showering and like while getting ready, or Martin Luther King speech, because I read that that's what he used to listen to. So I'd listen that and take that in, and then I'd while getting ready again, I'd watch him before going to work. I'd just watch him, and I don't know what I'm looking for. It's not like I'm looking to imitate him, but for me it was like looking for a spirit, you know, trying to go, okay, what's the energy? What's the energy that why did I choose this video? What's the energy? What's the energy? What am I getting from this? What am I getting? What's it telling me? You know what I'm saying? What's coming through me? And that's kind of it. And then I took up smoking, obviously herbals, but I took up smoking to get a certain texture for my voice. And kind of, yeah, I just kind of tried to do what he did, listen to what he listened to and read what he read. I read the Black Panther Party reading list in order to educate. 6 weeks education. There was a big reading list that Shaka gave me. I read the majority of books on that, and it's just kind of like it's first coming from the mind and kind of from the context and understand, and then mapping out the world, and then just doing what he did, and then you're just performing his routine every day, performing his routine, and then it just arrived. Then the spirit would come through you. You feel me?
Yeah. I want to center on one scene in particular for just a minute. The scene where Chairman Fred is giving his first speech after getting out of prison. And this is a scene where all three of y'all are just doing and just exhibiting everything. Yes, Daniel, you may be up at the podium talking, but Dominique and Lakeith, y'all's characters are going through everything just here on your faces. So I'm going to actually start with Dominique in that moment. I'm going to start with you in that scene. How complicated is it to convey all of the things that Deborah is going through in these moments where she's pregnant, she is, reunited with Chairman Fred, but also is fully aware of the idea that he is being targeted, and this is a very dangerous situation they're all living through.
Yeah. I think I like to journalize all of my characters, but this one was different because she was a poet, and so I asked Shaka if I could have a journal that she carries around all the time. So the journal in the movie, I really wrote. I took every moment. The first time she meets Fred, I write a poem for him. The first time they kiss, I write a poem. Every chance that I got, I was writing just random thoughts, listening to a lot of Nina Simone. And Do What You Gotta Do was a special song where I felt their story in it. So I really just dissected in that way. And so when it came to doing certain scenes, I would put songs to each scene just so I could have that remembrance of it. But I didn't really have to force a thought because I had built up her internal world writing these journals. And then in this particular day, I just remember watching Daniel and feeling like everybody was moved because he transcended. You really did. He was in another place. And so for me, it was an honor because I didn't have to think. All I had to do was listen and watch him. And then all of the feelings of the baby in the stomach and my heart wanting to explode out of my chest. They were already there. And so I just had to be. I got the opportunity to be just watching Daniel do his thing.
Daniel, I'm actually going to go back to you on this one next, because a lot of what Shaka talked about is Fred's gravitas, how he could just walk into a room and just had that pull for everyone. And that's especially a scene where you see that. What was it like performing that speech in particular, but all of his speeches on screen? I
think that speech in particular was the first one where we could say his words, like in the chronological order of the script. We said his words. I think there was another one at the Malcolm X College speech where it would go back and forth. We would say his words, but then we chose to not to. So I think being in that moment and saying his words and seeing everyone, being in Cleveland, seeing everyone's faces, seeing that, it just felt like he was in the room, if I'm being honest. And it felt like I said, something's going through you and you're a vessel. And it was just, I don't really, if I'm being honest, I don't really remember the takes. I watched the trailer and I was like, I don't really remember So I usually remember takes. So I was like, I don't really remember that. I remember that, but I just kind of left. That kind of bit of me left, and I remember I'd go in between takes, like the background artists were like calling Chairman Fred. You know, it's like he was in the room. It was him. You know, because it was his words, it was his energy, it was his purpose, his message, his ideas that was coming through all of us in that room. And yeah, I just had to just stand in position, you know, and give and surrender and give my all. And that's kind of where I stayed.
And Lakeith, for you, you know, that scene is also kind of the epitome of all the things William is going through, where he's playing all these different characters. And in this scene, he's having to play them both at once. He's playing both sides of the moment. As in a lot of what you have to do in this film, you're not always saying everything. A lot of it is having to just be in the moment. So in that particular one, what was that scene like for you?
I think I will echo what Dominique sort of brought up, which was the idea that, you know, even before we got on set, the way that Daniel channeled Fred's spirit and energy, and he's a beautiful orator, and when he speaks, it goes directly to you, through you, and it's a difficult thing to not feel. There are very few people who have that, and he has that, and so I was always moved, and I found myself conflicted about like trying to stay focused on what it was that my mission was within the character and as an actor, and not be distracted by the moving weight of the things that I felt were true about what he was saying. So it kind of worked out perfectly, because I was really feeling that conflict that William might have been feeling, and so I don't know. It's just a beautiful synchronization that happened. And, you know, when I looked out into the crowd and saw all those beautiful Black people with afros and, you know, feeling free, that's something that was new for me to see. Because when I came up, it was we came up in a whole different era where, you know, as a result of things like that, motherfuckers came down on us hard and they got us all fucked up now, you know, and so that's what I was used to. And so being in that space and feeling like this is how I feel Black people are for real, you know, unified, together, intelligent, beautiful. That was it was kind of an amazing experience to go back into that, you know, that zone and feel like you're a part of that. But then also realizing there's another sinister aspect to it. You know, it's always somebody watching. The feds always watching. It's always somebody plotting on trying to bring down the truth. And so, and there were moments in his speeches, especially in that one, in the Malcolm X one, where I really was lost in the sauce of it, you know, in there feeling it. And then, you know, you got to remember, like, ah, shit, this white nigga right here in the audience is attached directly to me. So it was reminding me of, you know, what it was that my mission was, although my ambitions may have been deeply different.
What was it like playing those layers of William? Because, you know, while what he did is very dastardly, you know, this is not a straightforward villain, if you will. There's, you know, all of these sorts of attempts to understand why he was doing the things he's doing. Even in the continuation of scenes between you and Jesse Plemons, you know, as the FBI agent, you see the different layers of William where he's like, oh, you know, this first dinner, I'm just giving a little bit of information. So he's just eating and doesn't feel bad at all. And then as it goes and continues, he starts to feel the weight of what he is doing and the idea that he's potentially creating a murderous situation for this person who's kind of his friend now.
I think that there was a effort in me from jump to create a conscientiousness in O'Neill that didn't exist in our imagination, which is similar to the way that I reflect on my own decisions. You know, sometimes, you know, as I rose up through, just like even in the business, you know, I started off homeless. And then within a couple years, I had my dream car, had my dream house. Shit was moving, you know, and there would be moments where I would maybe just, you know, pre-COVID have a party or something, have all my people around, and the music is going, people dance, having a good time, and everything just goes slow motion for me in a moment. And I'm like, where the fuck am I at? What am I doing? How do I feel about this? You know, who's my friend here? And those kind of questions came up. And so I kind of wanted to bring that into O'Neal. Like, you know, he's still considering and thinking about the decisions that he's making. No one is just a villain in my mind. People make decisions because they feel like that's how they got to give it up. You know, I know people that are in the streets doing crazy shit who I love to death, you know, but they may not seem like the most beautiful person in somebody else's mind. But I think there's just nuances to characters. And so, I don't know, I always try to keep that in mind, that there was some love in O'Neal, even though he may have done things that we don't understand and agree with. I had to find that love. And it wasn't always easy, you know. I'll be crying and shit, telling Shaka, like, yo, I don't know, what the fuck is this? You know, especially when we got down to the scenes where I had to make a decision to like poison Fred or whatever. I was fucked up about that. I couldn't even keep it together for the scene because I was just like, damn, you know, everything just felt so real. So I just had to find the truth in it and try to move and trust in that.
Where in the shooting process was that pseudo Last Supper scene? Where were you guys when you were shooting?
50th anniversary. That was the day of the.
Yeah, that was the fucking.
That was the day of the 50th anniversary of his murder. That we did that scene. Yeah.
I remember the night before it was like coming up. I felt so heavy. You know, I felt like I had knots in my stomach, and I was like, "What is wrong?" And I realized that my body was preparing for the next day, even though my mind knew that we were interpreting it. You know, like, and I was telling myself like, well, Daniel's gonna be okay. It's not really happening, you know, but my body couldn't tell a difference. So I just had to cry. It was like, I have to mourn the loss of something, because even though this is not the same type of love, it is a love, and it is a love lost now, because we're coming to the end of the movie and you're coming to the end of filming. So things are going to change. It's not going to be the same. But I remember feeling like that. And I remember the morning walking in, and it was very, they didn't want Deb to cry, especially for the family and for Shaka. But every time I walked, especially between those 2 days, every time I walked in that house, in that replica apartment, I couldn't stop crying.
Daniel, what was the weight of that day, those days, like for you?
That was heavy. That was heavy, man. I remember I wanted to say something at the beginning of the day before we started work, and then Shaka said a speech. He said a speech. I remember part of the speech was there's so much information about his death, but we're making a movie about his life. And then I remember I said a speech, cannot remember what I said, but I knew that tears were coming. And I'm not a crier. So I was like, woof, woof, woof. But it's that you had a window into the weight they carried. You know, that constant knowledge within themselves that one day they could be taken out. Do you know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Just because for wanting to be a human being. Do you know what I'm saying? To have that, to be fighting for something so right, but knowing that you have the punishment of the worst wrongdoer over your head is a conflict that is heavy, that I really felt that day. And then, yeah, man, and and the fact that we was doing that scene that day was a lot. It was a lot. And even just what happens in those scenes, and him letting an idea that the other Panthers are holding on to go, and him submitting and letting go. It was heavy.
Yeah, absolutely. Dominique, in crafting this character, I know you just spoke about the journaling, but you also wrote a poem, When the People Call, that ends up in the film, in this, powerful, pivotal scene between Deborah and Fred. I know that you said you were journaling through the whole period, but what caused you to write that specific piece?
It actually started when I first met Shaka, and I said I read the script, and I sent him an email, and I said, I have two thoughts, and he said, well, where are they? And I said, well, one, I know this is not a romance. I'm a romantic, so I'm gonna be looking for the times where they could share those moments, like, Daniel, hold my hand.
And they're very romantic. It comes off very romantic in the film.
Oh, good. So I was like, I know it's not a romance, but, I'm very aware of how Black women are shown in the media, especially when it comes to love. A lot of times, we'll see white women in these romances, and the guy could just see them, and all of a sudden he wants to give everything for them and to them, but Black women don't get the same treatment. We have to constantly prove ourselves, prove that we're smart enough, or, ride out with them through jail or whatever it is. And I said, I want to make sure that we know that Fred loves Deb because of her intellect, because of so much more than just the physical, and so much more than him being an honorable man, and now she's pregnant, right? Like, how could we develop that relationship so that that's not the case? So that was one. And then the other one was, one of the first things she says to Fred is, do you like poetry? And then proceeds to not share or write or do a poem ever since. And I said, so I think the Panthers were very poetic people. I think we miss an opportunity if we don't do it. And he was like, I think you're right. Do you want to take a shot at that poem? And I was like, oh, I wasn't expecting for him to ask me to do it. So I wrote the piece, and then it got in a script. And so every time, and this was like almost like a year out from filming. And so I would constantly get different versions of the script, and I would look to see, oh my God, the poem was still in there. The poem was still in there. And then I didn't really believe it until I saw the final edit, and the poem is in there. But it was just really important to get her insight at that time, what it is like to be carrying a baby in these times with somebody who can go up on a stage and say, like, I'm not going to die from this or that. I'm going to die because I love the people. And I think I was thinking about the end scene when she has to essentially get off of him and go out. And I was kind of trying to think, well, what is going to make her get off of him? What is going to make her get off of him? And it reminds me of when Fred is telling them that, what is the party about, me, or is it about the people? And he's all about the people. And so I had to say, how is Deb going to get off of Fred in this moment? What would he want? It would be for the people. The people includes this child. Okay, so that is the motivation for her to surrender, as Daniel said as well.
Absolutely. Well,
wow. Hey, I don't mean to interrupt you. I didn't know you. I kind of knew you wrote the poem, but I didn't know you wrote. Man, that shit is beautiful as hell. Like, that's amazing. Much love. That's dope.
This really does feel like such a beautiful coming together, and I know that this is something that has been so on all of your hearts. But I want to wrap this up by noting, too, that this is a bit of an on-screen reunion of sorts between you, Lakeith, and Daniel. How have, and I want you each to answer this about each other, but how have you seen each other grow as actors and performers since Get Out? And Daniel, I'll ask you first.
Wow. Lakeith, man. I feel like just watched him grow as a man. And his, I mean, when we did that scene, we was working on Get Out, his commitment level was still the same, which is absolutely inspirational. You know what I'm saying? That guy throws everything to a character, to a role, to a spirit. And he just goes all in. So the looks that I'm giving and Get Out are the actual looks. So I'm like, yo, what's going on? Like, he's really going. It's like, oh, yo, this guy's he's really going there. And so I think like he's always had that, and that is consistent. I just feel there's a level of depth that the script and the character allowed him to access in this, that he applied that same commitment to. You know what I mean? And that same, like, he's in it for real. And it's kind of watching him just grow as a and see his trajectory and watch him get. I know, like, sky's the limit. Do you know what I'm saying, for Lakeith? So it's just and I just genuinely believe he's just one of the best actors of our generation. It's the reality, and so it's been that's always amazing just to see, and you feel privileged. You feel like, wow, I'm in the right space if you're working with an artist like that. You feel me?
I first saw Daniel in Black Mirror, and I just realized that kind of energy is rare. You know, you don't be seeing that shit on screen like that. You maybe might see something similar on stage, you know, but as an on-screen actor, to bring that kind of intensity and depth and of reality is something that's not often seen. And then we did Get Out, and I didn't have too many scenes with Daniel there, so I didn't really get a glimpse into what was happening until later, until it all came together. And I saw the film and I was like, yo, this motherfucker right here, yo, this shit, it's just fire. And so I was excited at the opportunity to work with him on this because I knew there would be things I could learn. And that's precisely what happened. I learned a bunch. I was inspired a lot. And he quickly became one of my favorite people to ever do it, you know? And so when he gives me compliments like that, when he says things like that, it's reassurance for me, for someone that, you know, I have a lot of respect for, that, you know, we've been working on the craft and, you know, we've been going hard and trying to be better and find out new ways to be honest and tell stories the way we want to tell them. So I'm happy to have him as a partner in this. And I don't give a fuck what nobody say. He's the best friend. He's the only person that could did what he did, you know? So, yeah, it's love. You know, I love seeing the growth, and a person like that is going to grow, and that's the only way we go. You know.
Well, thank you for indulging me in, you know, just a little brotherly love, because that's what we should all be fostering more of out here in the world. Thank you for putting your art on screen with Judas and the Black Messiah. And thank you to everyone for joining us for this SAG-AFTRA Foundation conversation. I want to thank you for your experience and for sharing your experience and your process and your craft with your fellow performers.
Thank you.
Thank you, man. Appreciate you.